Hello my dear students, I am Pratibha Deya from the English Lux and today we will discuss a chapter for students of class 12th, Flamingo book, chapter number 1, The Last Lesson, written by Alphonse Daudet. Outline of our video is detailed summary, moral. Dear students, let's look at the line by line explanation of the chapter. If you're watching my videos for the first time, please subscribe. You can listen to the explanation of lessons from classes 6 to 12th English and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can get notified whenever I upload a video. Let's move on to the video now. Students, today we shall learn a chapter, The Last Lesson, written by Alphonse Daudet. Alphonse Daudet was a French novelist and short story writer. The Last Lesson is set in the days of the Franco-Prussian War, in which France was defeated by Prussia, led by Bismarck. Prussia then consisted of what now are the nations of Germany, Poland, and parts of Austria. In this story, the French district of Alsace and Lorraine have passed into Prussian hands. Let's read the story to find out what effects this had on life at school. I started for school very late that morning and was great dread of a scolding, especially because M. Hamel had said that he would ask questions on participles, and I did not know the first word about them. The narrator of the story is a young school-going boy named French. That morning he was scared as he was late for school. Also, as the teacher M. Hamel had announced the previous day that he would test them on the topic of participles. And French did not know anything at all. He was more scared of being scolded. For a moment I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. It was so warm, so bright. French had another option in his mind, to miss school and enjoy the day out in the warm and bright weather. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. Sawmill, a factory for cutting wood, drilling, exercising. French had another option in his mind, to miss school and enjoy the day out in the warm and bright weather. He describes the scene. There were birds chirping on the trees and the noise of the Prussian soldiers doing the drill behind the sawmill could be heard. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles, but I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. Tempting, attracting, resist, to stay away. The scene outside was more attractive than the school, but French controlled the temptation and chose to attend school. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there, the lost battles, the drafts, the orders of the commanding officer, and I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? Bulletin board, a notice board for putting up the latest news and communication. As French walked past the town hall, he noticed a huge crowd at the notice board. The war with Prussia had begun 2.5 years ago, and since then all the bad news like losing the war, occupation of Alsace and Lorraine by the enemy, that is Prussia, etc. had been communicated to the people through this bulletin board. French kept on walking towards the school and thought in his mind that what news could have been put up at the board now. Then, as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith watcher, who was there with his apprentice reading the bulletin, called after me, "Don't go so fast, Bub. You will get to your school in plenty of time." Apprentice here is training. As he walked hurriedly towards the school, the blacksmith, who was also reading the news and had come along with his trainee, called out to French from behind and said that he need not go in such a hurry, as there was plenty of time for him to reach school. I thought he was making fun of me, and raised M. Hamel's little garden all out of breath. Franz thought that the blacksmith was making fun of him, as he was already late for school. When Franz reached the garden outside the school, he was out of breath, as he had walked very fast. Usually, when school began, there was a great bustle, which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loud, with our hands over our ears to understand better the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. A great bustle, a lot of noise created by many people in unison at the same time, and rapping, striking. So, Friends describes the usual scene at the school in the mornings. A lot of noise created by the morning moving of desks. Children repeated their lessons and teachers striking the tables with the rulers could be heard. But now it was all so still. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. Counted on, meaning here is depended upon. Commotion, noise and confusion. That day was unusual, as there was no such sound coming out of the school, and it seemed that the school was closed, as it used to be on a Sunday morning. French had planned that he would take cover under the commotion and reach the class without being noticed, but that did not seem possible. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places, and M. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. French peeped inside his class and saw his classmates seated, and M. Hamel, their teacher, walking in the class with the ruler made of iron placed under his arm. French feared a beating. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. Blushed, face turned red in color due to shame. French was ashamed of being late and feared a scolding, as he had to enter the classroom in front of everyone. But nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little French. We are beginning without you." French found it strange, as M. Hamel did not say anything, and on the contrary, politely asked him to get to his seat, as the class was about to begin without him. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. French hurried to his seat after some time. When he overcame the scare and became comfortable, he noticed that their teacher had worn his best embroidered that day. The teacher normally wore it on occasions like inspection and prize distribution days. French wondered if that day was a normal day, then what could be the reason for M. Hamel to wear his special dress? Besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. But the thing that surprised me Most was to see on the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others besides. Meaning of solemn is serious. French felt that the atmosphere in the school was unusual and serious. To add to it, the last benches of the classroom were occupied by the senior villageman, Hauser, who was wearing his three-cornered hat, the retired mayor, postmaster, etc. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer thumbed at the edges, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles laying across the pages. Primer is basic reader of any language, and thumbed, torn and damaged. They all looked sad. Hauser had brought his reader, which was old and torn. He had opened it, kept it on his knees, and had placed his spectacles on it. While I was wondering about it all, M. Hamel mounted his chair, and in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive, grave, serious." French was confused and could not figure out what was happening that day. Just then, M. Hamel told them that it was their last lesson in French, as the Prussians in Berlin had ordered that French language would no longer be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, and that German language be taught instead. The German teacher would arrive the next day, and as this was the last lesson in French, he wanted them to pay attention. What a thunderclap these words were to me! Oh, the wretches! That was what they had put up at the town hall. Thunderclap is used in comparison to refer to something startling or unexpected. Wretches here, it refers to an unfortunate happening. Franz was shocked to know that he could not learn French any longer, and now he knew the latest news that had been put up at the bulletin board of the town hall. My last French lesson? Why, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there. Then, oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, forsaking birds, eggs, or going sliding on the Saar. Saar is a river which passes through France. French regretted in these lines for not being serious towards studies and for wasting his time in hunting birds, eggs, and playing in the Saar River. My books, that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give up. Nuisance, problem, burden. Couldn't give up, cannot leave. Till now, friends considered his books to be an unwanted burden, but suddenly he starts considering them to be his best friends, whom he could never leave. The writer wants to show the change in Friend's attitude towards study after hearing the news that he could not learn French any longer. And M. Hamel too, the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. Cranky, strange, short-tempered. The news that their teacher, M. Hamel, was leaving had also had a similar impact on him. Friends did not want him to go away. He no longer thought the teacher to be short-tempered and strict. Poor man! It was in honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes, and now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. Sunday clothes, the best dress that a person has. Now friends knew that M. Hamel was wearing his best dress in honor of this last lesson. He also realized that the village men had come to pay respect and thank M. Hamel for his service of 40 years in that school. It was because they were sorry, too, that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. The village men had come to the class as they were also repenting for not have studied well in their childhood. They had come to thank their master for his 40 years of service as a teacher of French. Also they wanted to show respect to their country and were sad as their mother tongue French would no longer be taught to them. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. The teacher calls out to French as it is turn to recite the topic of participles. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through, very loud and clear, and without one mistake. Dreadful, frightening. As the news had impacted French, he was eager to study, and so he was desperate to show his eagerness. He wanted to be able to recite the topic in one go and without any mistake, and please his teacher. His desperation is reflected in his willingness to give away all that he had in return for reciting the lesson well. But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there, holding on my desk, my heart beating, and not daring to look up. Mixed up, confused. As French did not know the lesson, he got confused and stood quietly. His heart was beating fast as he was ashamed of himself and did not have the courage to face his teacher. I heard M. Hamel say to me, I won't scold you, little French. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, Bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out. Come out is result. M. Hamel said to French that he would not scold him as now he had realized his mistake. Every day French told himself that he would study the next day, and now the opportunity to study had ended and he knew nothing. Ah, that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? But you are not the worst, poor little French. We have all a great deal of reproach ourselves with. Pretend, show. To reproach, blame. M. Hamel says that all the people of Alsace were to be blamed, as no one was serious towards learning. He tells the class that the enemies, Persians, would laugh at them and say that they only show to be Frenchmen, as they can neither speak nor write their own language. He says that French should not be guilty, as everyone is at fault. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? M. Hamel says that French's parents were not interested in getting him educated. They wanted him to work at a farm or a mill and earn some money. He says that as a teacher, he was also not interested in teaching them. He would send them to his home to water the plants. Sometime he would declare a holiday and go for fishing. Then from one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it, because when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. M. Hamel praises their mother tongue French language as being the most beautiful, clearest, and most logical language in the world. He tells the class to guard their language as it is the only way to free oneself from the prison of slavery. If a person knows his mother tongue well, no one can enslave him. Knowing the mother tongue well as a language is a tool to fight domination. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. The teacher took a lesson in grammar. That day, French was surprised that he understood the lesson with ease. He felt that he had been attentive and that M. Hamel also explained the lesson with a lot of patience. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. French felt that the teacher wanted to give them all the knowledge he had before leaving. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamel had new copies for us, written in a beautiful round hand, France, Alsace, France, Alsace. After grammar, they had a lesson in writing. M. Hamel gave the class new notebooks with France, Alsace beautiful written on them. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the classroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desk. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work, and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. French felt that here was an air of patriotism in the class. The notebooks were like flags of France that were floating all around. The entire class was busy writing, and the only sound that could be heard was that of the pen writing on the paper. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest ones, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. Beetles, a large-sized insect, not even the littlest ones, refers to the pigeons, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks, scratching with their claws. Once some mosquitoes flew into the class, but no one panicked as everyone was busy writing. The writer considers the pigeons sitting on the roof of the class to be students as well, and says that even the pigeons were busy scratching the roof with their claws, and it seemed that they were also busy writing the task of French language. On the roof of the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? The coo sound of the pigeons could be heard in the class, and French wondered that would the Persians force the peasants also to change their language and go in German. The writer wants to say that language comes naturally to a being and it cannot be forced upon anyone, be it the peasants or the Frenchmen. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. Gazing, looking intently, fix in his mind, store or keep forever. In between writing, French looked at M. Hamel, who sat still and stared at the different things in the classroom in succession as if he wanted to memorize the appearance of everything before leaving. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. Just like that, M. Hamel had been teaching at that same place for the last 40 years. Only the desk and benches had been worn smooth, the walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hope vine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. The only changes were that the desk in the classroom had worn out due to use over the years. The walnut trees in the garden outside had grown taller. The hope vine on the outer wall of the school building had climbed up to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next. French feels that the teacher must be heartbroken to be sent away from a place where he had spent 40 years of his life. The noises of his sister packing and moving their luggage could be heard from the room upstairs as they had to leave the next day. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, boo. M. Hamel remained composed and heard the lesson from the entire class. After the writing task, there was a lesson of history followed by phonetics, where they recited the sounds of alphabets. French referred to the class as babies because although they were grown up, they were reciting the lesson of phonetics, which is usually done by younger children. So he calls himself and his class to be babies. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding the primer in both his hands, recited the letters with the class. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remembered it, that last lesson. He was crying, his voice trembled as he spoke. French had mixed feeling. He found it funny to see how an old man like Hauser was crying and trembling, and on the other hand, he also felt emotional, like Hauser did. French could not forget this last lesson. All at once the church clock struck 12, then the Angelus. Angelus prayer sung in the church. The start is marked by the ringing of the bell. Just then the clock at the church struck 12 and the prayer song began. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Persians returned from drill sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up, very pale, in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. Trumpets, a musical instrument, pale, used to describe a person's face or skin if it has less color than usual. At the same moment, the sound of the trumpets played by the Persian soldiers who were returning from the drill was heard. Hamel's face became dull and colorless. As the time had come for the class to get over, he stood straight and motionless, and French says that he had never appeared to be so tall. My friend said I, I, but something choked him. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and, bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, Viva la France! Hamel began to speak, but could not continue, as he was overpowered by his emotions. He took a piece of chalk and wrote the words Viva la France, means Long live France, on the blackboard as large as he could. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed, you may go. Gesture, a signal. Then he stopped writing, bent towards the wall, and without speaking anything, signaled the class to leave as the class was over. So this we come to end of the story. The story depicts the pathos of whole situation about how people when they don't learn their own language. Moral of this story is about the significance of one's language in one's life for the very existence of our race and how important it is to safeguard it. Author wants to say us that our language is the key to freedom, and if our language is taken from us, then so is our freedom. I hope you liked today's video. For more informative videos, do subscribe my channel The English Lux. Thank you. Do like, share and give your valuable comments below, and don't forget to subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you for watching.